Hello everyone and a very welcome back to all my dear students. I am Dr. Swani Parekh and you are with me on the channel Fernful Life. So all those who are new to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel as I upload a lot of videos related to botany and biology every week. Also, I want to thank all those who are already my subscribers. Thank you for always supporting me because you have been my motivation behind making more new videos. So, thank you very much. And in today's lecture, we are going to understand about environmental impact assessment, which is again a very interesting topic and a topic which is important for understanding in today's time. So, let's start with our learning journey. So, dear students, environmental impact assessment is basically also called as EIA. In short form, it is called as EIA, whereas if you elaborate EIA, it is called as Environmental Impact Assessment. Now, this EIA is an a very important management tool for ensuring optimal use of natural resources for sustainable development. So basically EIA is a process and it is a way by which you ensure that the natural resources are used optimally and sustainable development, the goal of sustainable development is maintained. So the work of EIA is to basically manage sustainable development. So it evaluates the environmental impact of proposed project or development. So what basically environmental impact assessment does, it evaluates the environmental impact of any project or development that is going to happen in any place, right? We will take examples on this, right? So what does environmental impact assessment takes into account? It takes into account socio-economic impact, that whatever project is going to start, what will be its impact on the socio-economic status of the people, on the culture of the people, and human health impacts, both beneficial and adverse impact are considered, and it also takes into account all the impact on the environment, right? So how does UNEP define EIA? UNEP defines EIA as a tool used to identify the environmental impacts of project prior to decision making. So what does UNEP say? That EIA is basically a tool which will help you to identify that what are the various environmental impact that this particular project is going to have, right? And this evaluation is done before the decision making that the project should start or not, right? So environmental impact assessment is therefore a very important step. So basically what we have to understand is the steps in EIA, right? So the step in EIA is basically a systematic process where identification of need is the first step, which means that you have to identify that what is the requirement of this project. For example, government comes up with a project of railway corridors. So what is the need of that railway corridor? So identification of need is very important, right? For example, someone comes up with a project of making a very large garden. So what is the need of that garden, right? So identification of need is first step. Then you have to give a proposal. So whatever project you want to put, right, or whatever project an organization or a firm wants to put, what is your proposal, or what is the proposal of that organization, what the organization wants to propose, that this is what we will do. And you have to describe the purpose of your project and your proposal, that how exactly and what exactly you want to do in that area, right? And then based on the proposal description, screening will be done, right? This screening will basically tell you whether the project requires EIA or the project does not require EIA, right? So there are many small and large projects proposed by different firms, or small and large projects proposed by government, right? So these projects, some of them may require environmental impact assessment, some of them may not require. So that whether some project require or whether some project does not require, the screening of that happens in this step, right? So now, for example, a project does not require EIA, so that project can move forward, and environmental impact assessment is not carried out. But what for those projects, for those EIA is required? For example, a project is screened and the project is identified as the project which requires environmental impact assessment before uh, putting that project into action, right? So for projects that require environmental impact assessment, the very first step is scoping, right? Now what is scoping? Scoping is basically where is a step where you will address all possible impacts of your project, right? So whatever project is being proposed, what will be the possible impacts of the project on the environment has to be addressed. What will be the impact of the project on the socio-economic status of the people living there has to be assessed, right? uh, After you know already that what will be the possible impacts, now you have to start considering alternatives or project actions, right? So by alternative I mean that what other alternatives are possible, or what other locations you can take your project to, what other processes you can take instead of what you have proposed, right? So you have to consider all possible impacts, and you also have to give alternatives. For example, your project is something that is causing more damage to the location in which you have proposed your work, right? So you have proposed your work, for example, say in location 1. So your project is going to cause more damage to location 1. So then you will have to think of alternative location 2, where the impact of your project will be less, the negative impact of your project will be less. Similarly, for example, the process that you will be using during that project. For example, if you are going to build a metro rail project, right? So the process of making that metro rail project is going to cause more harm. So what are the ways, alternative processes by which you can reduce that negative impact on the environment? So you have to think of alternative, and you also have to give clarification of the purpose of project. So purpose is utmost thing, very first thing that has to be clear, and then you have to also mention all the impacts, all the possible impacts, and what could be the alternatives. And then there has to be identification of main impacts or prediction of main impacts. So there might be many impacts of your project on a certain area, right? But you have to identify that what are the main dominant impacts that your project is going to have. So there might be impact which might be smaller ones, so that is okay if you don't consider them. But if you don't consider impacts that are bigger enough, that are larger enough, that is going to have a more negative impact, then that would be then not good. So you have to go for identification of main impacts, or you have to see for the prediction of impacts, right? then uh, then comes the step of evaluation and assessment. Now, what is the step of evaluation and assessment? So in this step, the government body assesses the relative significance of all predicted impacts. So whatever impacts you have predicted, for example, you are saying that your project is going to cause a lot of pollution related to noise, related to water. So these are your predicted impacts. So the whatever committee is there, they will assess that what is the significance of this predicted impact. Are these impacts actually important to consider or not, right? So evaluation and assessment of your predicted impacts will be done, and based on that, mitigation, redesigning, planning may be carried out for better impact management. So in this step, basically, you will have to take all the measures to avoid, reduce or compensate for the adverse effect, adverse impacts that your project is going to have on the environment, right? So mitigation or redesigning is basically required. Mitigation is basically making changes, right? And redesigning is also required, because since you are making changes, so your project will get redesigned, and accordingly you will have to plan. So in this step, after the step of evaluation, after assessing the significance of the impacts, so the committee might tell you to mitigate or to make changes or to redesign in such a way your project that all the measures should be taken care of to either avoid, to either reduce or compensate for the adverse impact. So you will have to try to reduce the impact of your project on the environment, or you will have to compensate for the adverse effect your project will have on the environment. So you can reduce it by using different type of methods, or you can compensate it. For example, if you say that your project is going to cause a lot of cutting of trees at a certain place, so what will be the compensation for that? Compensation will be that for every cutting of one tree, you will plant 10 to 20 tree in some another place, right? So that is called compensation. So like this, you will have to take all the measures to avoid the adverse effect. Either you can completely remove the adverse effect, or you can reduce it. How you can reduce it, that you have to mention, and how you are going to compensate the adverse effect, that you have to take care of. So what can be done in the step of mitigation? Basically, in the step of mitigation, you have to find alternatives. Finding alternatives is very important. As I mentioned before, enhance social and environmental benefits. Your measures should be such that it enhances the social and environmental benefits. Your measures should be such that it avoids or minimizes adverse effect. Whatever adverse effect is there, care has to be taken that it gets minimized or it gets completely removed. Uh, it has to ensure that residual adverse impacts are kept at acceptable level. Now, no matter how much you try to reduce the impact, there will always be some or other adverse impact which you cannot remove completely, right? So then comes the point that in that case, when you already have adverse impact, but in such cases you need to ensure that whatever adverse impact is that adverse impact you keep at a certain acceptable level. For example, say noise pollution. So if your project is causing a lot of noise pollution, right, so then you have to ensure that whatever noise pollution is being caused, that noise pollution is at an acceptable level. So that adverse impact has to be uh, kept at acceptable level. That is an example. So all this can be done during the mitigation step. Now next step is EIS report, that is environmental impact statement. Now you will prepare a report. In that report you will mention everything. It contains all the information regarding the project, like what is your project, what is your proposal about the project, where you are going to put up the project, right, what is the legal framework, are you going legally or not, and what are the impacts of the project on the environment. Are the impacts positive or are the impacts negative? If positive, what are the positive impacts? If negative, what are the negative impacts? Then whatever negative impacts are, that for that what are the mitigation steps that you took, what is the redesigning step that you are planning to take, right? Then public involvement is also very much important in EIS report. And then you have to put up references, right? References means what all other works you have referred, so that can be put up. Well, public involvement is a very important step in EIS, which means that general public can get involved in the process of environmental impact assessment, right? So after preparation of the EIS report, the report whatever you prepared will be reviewed, right? So a committee will review your report, and based on that next step will come. So any modification required in the project will be addressed during this step. So a committee will basically review your report, and the report, wherever modification is required, wherever mitigation is required, again that will be addressed in this step. Now comes the point of decision making, right? So when it comes to decision making based on the environmental impact statement report, either your project will get approved or your project will not be approved, right? So if your everything is good, all your mitigation and redesigning strategies are found to be correct, if the public are okay with what you are going to do, then your project gets approved and you clear the you get the environment clearance, right? Whereas if your project is not found to be properly fitting all the requirement in a way that the environment gets benefited, then your project might not get approved. So this decision making is done by EIA authority. The EIA authority makes this decision. Now the project, if gets approved, the project can start their work. The first phase of project can start, but this is not the end, as even after approval, monitoring impact management is a continuous step, right? After allowing a project to start, if you don't take care of what is being happening during the project, then that could again have negative impacts. So monitoring is done regularly. In that case, EIA audits and evaluation are done continuously during the project also, so that wherever wherever changes has to be made, or wherever it seems like the environmental norms are not followed, so then this this project can be held again. It can again go on a hold if it looks like that the project is not following what it had showed in the report, right? And when the project is not approved, so then the project has to go for redesigning. They have to again think of how they can reduce the environmental impact, and they can redesign and they can resubmit their report again, and that report will then go for review, will go for public hearing, and then again for decision making. If found fit, then again it might get approved. If found unfit, then it might not get approved. So this is how the EIA process for any project goes on, right? So this is the basic steps which ensures that environmental impact assessment of every project is carried out. So that was about steps. And let me tell you that public involvement is allowed in environmental impact assessment project, and it is a very crucial step, which means that you as a general public have a say. If a group of people take protest against a project, then that project cannot proceed further unless and until those people, or unless and until uh, this group of people agree that okay, the project can move ahead. So that strong impact public can have on a certain, on the environmental impact assessment of projects. So basically, for all the projects, public are being called. Whichever public who have problem with the project, they can come and they can put up their petition, or they can put up their queries, and if answered correctly, the people might agree for the project to start. But if those questions are not answered correctly, then people might not agree and they can further protest against that project. So public involvement is a very very important step. And as a botanist or as a biologist, I think it is very important to know that um, public involvement is a very important step in environmental impact assessment. Okay, so how did EIA system come in India? So looking a bit into the history, right? So basically, USA was the first to assign EIA through NEPA. NEPA is National Environment Protection Act of 1969. So USA was the first to assign this EIA through this Protection Act. Later on in India, EIA started in 1976-77 when the Planning Commission asked the Department of Science and Technology for the River Valley projects. Now you know what are River Valley projects. River Valley projects are basically projects that are related to development of dam, right? Projects related to production of hydropower using water, right? So all these are called river valley projects, where rivers are being utilized or flowing water is being utilized for various purposes, right? Right. So in India, this basically the EIA process started in 1976-77, where it was said that the river valley projects should be assessed for environmental impact assessment, because when you build up a dam, there are a lot of things that are going to change. The flow of the river is going to change. The If you are going to build up a dam, you are going to procure land, and that land is of whom, that has to be identified. What is the damage caused to people living there, what is the damage caused to the environment there, is equally important. So for the first time, river valley projects were given to the Department of Science to assess for EIA. So in January 1994, the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change, this ministry is also written as MOEF, right? So Ministry of Environment and Forests and Climate Change, they issued a notification on EIA of development projects. So they put up a notification giving a list of projects that needs environmental impact assessment. So this notification listed at least 30 projects at that time, that is during 1994, to be assessed, and also public hearing was made a compulsion for all of these projects. So you see, before that all the projects were going without environmental impact assessment. So think that how much of environmental loss already must have been done. But then later on it was identified that um, these projects that are already going on should be assessed and their environmental impact should be checked, right? So such big 30 projects were listed in the notification, and a public hearing was also made important, compulsory. Then in September 2006, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change issued the EIA notification 2006, which makes prior environmental clearance mandatory for developmental activities. So later on, uh, an EIA notification was put up by the Ministry of Environment, where they ensured that for any development activity to happen, environment clearance should be mandatory. Now, whatever projects are being run in India falls into two category, category A and category B. What is category A project? All the category A project requires prior environmental clearance from central government, right? So the central government has to give environmental clearance before starting the project. Whereas for category B, prior environmental clearance is required from state government. So they might not need to take clearance from central government, but they have to take clearance from state government. Now in the category B also, category B1 and category B2 are there. So category B1 EIA report is to be given and public consultation is important. So in category B1, the whatever the project is there, for that EIA report has to be made and public hearings has to be made. This is important for category B1 projects. Whereas for category B2 projects, these projects are appraised based on application and other relevant documents. So they have to apply and they have to submit the relevant document related to their project. So based on that, appraisal is done. So depends what kind of project it is, depends how small or how big the project it is. Based on that, environmental impact assessment is done. Now important thing, talking about theory is one thing, but it is always important that we take case studies, right? So I am just going to give you some examples or explain you some examples in very short about the various projects that are being carried out, and why is environmental impact assessment important for these. So first case study is a case study on environmental impact assessment of Mumbai Ahmedabad high speed rail corridor, right? So you must have been already listening to this since long, right? So this project basically covers starts from Ahmedabad. The rail project starts from Ahmedabad. It takes into account Anand, Baroda, Bharuch, Surat, Bilimora, Vapi, Boisar, Virar, Thane and Mumbai. So in this process 350 hectares of land has to be occupied and 104 villages, of Maharashtra. This is just of Maharashtra. Apart from that, in Gujarat, this much area has to be occupied. So when you say this means that a lot of change of land, a lot of land acquisition has to be made. There are many lands that are private, there are lands that are government occupied. So all that private land also you have to occupy. How are you going to occupy? Now either you take mutual consent of that private land, of the owner of the private land, and or you compensate it with the money that the land carries, whatever is the cost of the land, you give that compensation, right? So uh, basically land acquisition is one thing. Now a lot of other things are that can come along with such project. So I just came across this is just a screenshot of a document. This document is of Mumbai Ahmedabad High Speed Rail Corridor, EIA. So this is a EIA report, right, where they have mentioned that what are the impacts that will be caused during the operation phase. So first impact is on land, where diversion of forest, removal of mangrove trees, loss of vegetation will be there, around 6,000 trees. Now how the second column is how are they going to compensate? So compensatory afforestation of mangroves and trees will be done. That is what it has been mentioned in the report. They will compensate the loss. Then for example, impact on tunnel, right? So generation of solid debris due to excavation activities, because you will have to excavate the earth, a lot of solid debris will be coming up, right? So what they are saying, that how are they going to find the alternative? The excavated soil debris should be disposed or reused. Either you dispose of the debris properly or you reuse the debris, right? Then and another thing is noise. So the project is going to cause a lot of noise. So they have explained the impact, and they have explained that how they are going to find the alternative, right? Then energy consumption is being discussed, right? So electrical energy for operating trains and stations will be required. So use of, how are they going to find alternative? Use of energy star rated equipment and fixtures. They will make sure that good 5-star things are being used, so that energy efficiency is being maintained. Now they are mentioning that greenhouse gases will be emitted. So associated greenhouse gas emission will be there. So they will compensate due to shift of mode from private vehicle. So what they are saying is that during the process greenhouse gas emission will be there, but we have to consider it like this, that many people who used to go through two-wheeler uh, to their offices or whatever it is, they will now start going through this high speed rail corridor. So that means the greenhouse gas emission will be reduced, right? Then they are talking a lot of noise will be generated. So that they have discussed, and the solution they have given. So these are just few screenshots that I have taken from the PDF. If you search online, you will find the whole PDF where you can see all of the impacts and the solution that they have mentioned. So that is how environmental impact assessment report is being made, right? So this is one case study. Second case study is environmental impact assessment and environmental management plant, a case study of magnesite and dunite mine in Chalk Hills, Salem, Tamil Nadu, South India. So you see Chalk Hills are hills where a lot of magnesite and dunite mineral is available. These minerals are used up in the process of, in the refractory industry. Refractory industry are basically all those industry that are dealing with you know um, these industries, they deal with burning, shaping of furnaces and all. So for example, steel industry also requires this magnesite and dunite mine. Many furnaces, they require magnesite and dunite linings, right? So this magnesite and dunites are being you know being excavated from the hills which are called chalk hills in Salem, that is in Tamil Nadu, South India. Now you know that mining is a very difficult task, right? So you are excavating whole of the hills, right? And the hilly area is being disturbed. You are excavating earth to mine the minerals, right? So there are a lot of impacts of mining as well. For example, in the I found a research paper where they have discussed the impact of this mining in the chalk hills of Salem, where they have mentioned that what are the impacts that this mining is going to cause. So they have discussed dust pollution, that since a lot of earth will be excavated, it will cause a lot of dust pollution, and it will obviously cause a lot of noise pollution. There will be lot of effects of vibrations because rocks will be blasted, right? And the vibration could be more severe. It could be even severe than the acceptable levels. So this paper has explained that what could be the impact of the environment, right? So if you want, I can put up a link of this, at least this these papers in the description box, which will maybe give you more information on this mining project. So there is always an impact on environment of any project that is carried out. Think of the vegetation over here, think of the biodiversity residing here, think of the people living here, think of the people working here, think of the health of the people working here. So all of these are impacts of any project which has to be assessed. Then third important environmental impact assessment project that I have put up is Char Dham Yatra project. So as you know, Char Dham is an important pilgrimage um, for Hindus, right, in India. Who Char Dham is basically temples that are present in the Uttarakhand region, and there was a time when to go to Char Dham was very difficult because there was no roadway, and the people who used to go to Char Dham, it was thought of that it was like their relatives used to think that whether they will come back or not was always a big question. So if they come back after the Char Dham Yatra, it was thought of as they were welcomed as if they have relived a life and they have come back, right? But see, with coming up of the technologies, a lot of roads and connections were made between these four places, the Yamunotri, Gangotri, Badrinath and Kedarnath. So these four places, road construction was proposed so that easily and more people can reach Char Dham Yatra. So always there are people who will protest against such activities. So these people are called environmentalists. So environmentalists had put up lot of concern related to this road construction. They said this as a road to disaster because they said that many sites of the mountain slopes along Char Dham highways have become unstable. Critical landslide zones have been activated. So, when you build up a highway, you are trying to disturb the ecosystem. So, a lot of landslides can come up. The mountain slopes, can get disturbed. They can become unstable. So there have been flash floods in Alaknanda Valley, Bhagirath Valley, and earthquake in Chamoli and Uttarkashi. So in many regions already when the project was going on, a lot of flash floods happened. Road widening activities is a major trigger for landslips. Cutting of trees is being done because you have to make roads, so you have to clear the area, and trees are being cut now. Already it is known that trees hold the soil, so when you remove those trees, the soil they become dispersed and the slopes become unstable. So project involves cutting the base of steep mountain slope and devdar and tan and kale trees. So a lot of trees were cut. So environmentalists, they protested against it, but uh, what happened? Government gave the approval for this project because whatever was the highway expansion project, very smartly the government they split this project into segments of less than 100 kilometer to avoid undertaking an EIA. Now you should know that EIA is often assessed for projects that are more than that covers more than 100 kilometer. So of course these four areas covers more than 100 kilometer, but what they did, they divided this whole project into small projects, into small segments of less than 100 kilometer, telling that the since the project is less than 100 kilometer, covers less than 100 kilometer, so it means that EIA should not be carried out, and like this they avoided taking EIA, and the whole mountain system was disrupted. So now you know that it has been already in news that a lot of thousands of people are moving to uh, the Char Dham, and in this May 2024 so many people have moved to Char Dham, right? That is because of the roads that we have made, and that is also because of media. But then this road has led to disaster. Do you think that this ever increasing crowd in Char Dham Yatra, do you ever think that the Himalayan regions are ready for this? Right? This is not the capacity that the Himalayas can take. But then, anyways, the roads have been made and no EIA was carried out. It was split into segments of less than 100 kilometer, and like that the EIA was avoided. So you already know what is the situation. Okay, then comes a case study on environment impact assessment of Ahmedabad rail project. So all those who are staying in Ahmedabad, they already know that the metro rail project has started, and first phase has started, and in some places the metro has been made also. So this is a part of the Gujarat metro rail project where Surat will also get metro rail, right? So metro rail project also has a lot of impact. Again, you have to acquire land, private lands also. You are going to cut trees, you are going to cause a lot of noise pollution, you are going to cause a lot of dust pollution, construction waste, you are going to cause a lot of waste and debris creation, right? And you are going to take the houses and livelihood of many people living there. So these are all the adverse impact of any project, and metro rail project is also going to have this impact, right? So this is not just about Ahmedabad metro rail project. There is metro rail in Bangalore also, there is metro rail in Mumbai also. All these metro rail projects have very adverse impact. So but government always has ways to cope through this, and they will put up in the EIA that they are going to compensate it, but we don't know how much is being compensated or what all things have been done for the people living there. So the MOEF Government of India notification of 14 September 2006, this is mentioned in the Gujarat Metro Rail Project website. they are mentioning that the notification given by MOEF on 14 September 2006 that projects in schedule always require environmental clearance, but they say that as per the notification a metro project does not require environmental clearance from MOEF. So they are mentioning that there is no environment clearance required for metro projects from the MOEF. So I don't know how much is this correct, but this sentence is being written on their website only. So you think that metro rail project has also not gone through a environment clearance. A case study on Hasdev Forest, Chhattisgarh on Parsa East and Kantabasan PEKB coal block. So, friends, this is a very recent thing that is going on in India. That is the Hasdev Forest of Chhattisgarh, where coal mines are there and a lot of coal is being extracted from this Hasdev forest. Now what has happened is Hasdev forest is a very lush green forest which has a lot of trees. It is a biodiversity area where a lot of trees are there, a lot of biodiversity is there, and a lot of animals house is this place, the Hasdev forest. But you know what? This Hasdev forest has been converted, many part of Hasdev forest has been converted to this type of region which is called the coal mines, right? And this is not new actually. This coal mines was prepared long back. The approval for coal mine was given long back, maybe in 2012, and the phase 1 was already started. Many part of the forest was converted like this and coal mining was done, right? And this now again Hasdev forest recently in January came into picture because now the government has approved the phase 2 of this coal mining, where again a lot of trees are going to get damaged. So I took this from an article from the website of article14.com, where they have mentioned that second phase of mining operation has started and over 14,000 trees were cut in addition to 81,000 that were cut since 2012. So this is a work of actually when it was 2012, but now the second phase is in picture and people are protesting against it. So many environmental activists, they say that this figure is a undercount. They estimate that another 3,99,000 trees face the X for mining coal in the lush forest of Hasdev forest. So you must have seen videos in Instagram, in YouTube, where you will see that a lot of Adivasi people living there are actually protesting against this because they feel that their forest is getting lost, because they obtain their livelihood from this forest. They basically they treat these forests as their god because they get their livelihood from this. So you can see this protest where the Adivasi women are protesting that Adani company wapis jao, right? That is why are they saying this? Because Parsa East and Kantabasan PEKB coal block is basically a coal block, a coal mining area which is managed by the Adani group. So the Adivasis, they know that they have a say, and this is where public involvement is important, and environmental activists also play a very important role. So what is the point of such kind of development if the biodiversity is getting lost, if the people's home is getting lost, if the animals they are not getting their habitat? What is the point of this development? So therefore environmental impact assessment is important, right? So this is the most recent thing that is going on, that is Hasdev forest. A lot of people are protesting and supporting the fact that the forest should not be cleared. right? So thank you very much. By explaining you these case studies, I suppose that you are clear now that what is environmental impact assessment and how much important it is. So it's time to take action wherever you know that a project is going on, and if you know the impact of that project, please go and read the environmental impact assessment report prepared by that particular project. And if you want, you can raise your voice and do take action, right? So it's always the work of educated people to raise voice against such kind of activities, and come up with solutions to this. So thank you very much. If you have any doubt, or if you want to understand anything else, please do let me know. I will put up the links to certain research paper and environmental impact assessment report, so that you can go there and read about it and get more information. Thank you very much. I'll be back with another lecture again. Thank you.